Hey, hey. So I'm filming this because I've recently been going through a ton of stuff with the Heart Math Institute, and I'm learning so much, and it's blowing my mind. Some of these things and some of these concepts I kind of already knew, but the more and more I'm diving into it, I mean, there's just like this whole world uh, just untapped. There's so much potential there. And I'm filming this because right now I think it's very very appropriate given what's going on in the world. And at the time of this filming, we have a lot of protests going on here in the US in response to the murder of not one, but many African American individuals. I mean, this is just the latest in a string of abuse, abuse of power, a string of it's a string of fear. Because anytime any single human being harms another, it's always rooted in fear. It's always rooted in ignorance. Ignorance of the inherent connection that we share. Ignorance of the humanity that is both within ourselves and the other person. In fact, fear itself is the result of ignorance. And we go through our lives harmed by others. And as a result of that, people then grow up to continue to harm others because they've been harmed and they haven't learned how to heal. They haven't learned how to process that. And we see that. We see that both within ourselves and our families. We argue over small little things, but, on a larger, more, I guess you could say, more severe, more intense level, it sometimes ends up in someone losing their life. And by no means is this like some kind of way to justify or condone. But, it does require a level of compassion on every single individual's part to see the fact that they too have that potential in them. And that's key because we all do. We all truly do have that potential within us. But of course, it's our job, it's our responsibility to make sure that we show up differently in the world. And this is really the crux of it, right? Like, we need to start working on ourselves. We need to go inward, heal our wounds, heal our trauma. I forget the statistics exactly. I want to say something close to like, I know it's in the 90s, like 80s, 90s. I believe it's in the 90%, somewhere in the 90 percentile range. That, if you look at sociopaths, psychopaths, murderers, all of these individuals had very traumatic childhoods. They've been abused, verbally, physically, sexually abused. They grew up in really, really violent environments that are conducive to creating an individual who fears, who feels pain. If you guys even look at the research from, they talk about the ACE studies, right? The adverse childhood experience. And, the more you rack up on that, you'll see that, it has a direct effect on your physical well-being, on your health, your mental, emotional well-being. So those early years are very formative, and we've talked about this, right? Especially up until age 7. We're, from a brainwave perspective, like, we're in theta mode, and we're just constantly consuming. Like, we're in a very real way, we're just downloading information into our being because those are very formative years. And so we're trying to pick up and learn everything that we need to about the world, right? So that way we can survive in it. And there's no real, constructive, critical thinking done at that point, because we lack the hardware for it. So we're just really just placing into our subconscious everything that's occurring around us, everything that we're hearing, reading. And oftentimes this produces a lot of limiting beliefs for all of us. But that's that's a separate topic. I don't want to dive into that today, but just going back to what I'm talking about with the Heart Math Institute, I want to share this with you guys because it's quite amazing, you know, because that your heart has its own nervous system. It's its own sort of inner brain. Okay, it's I didn't know this prior, but it's also a gland, meaning that it can produce different hormones. Now, some of these hormones affect, you know, like your circulation, blood vessels, things like that, but it also produces oxytocin. Think about that. So oxytocin isn't just produced in the brain or other parts of the body, it's also produced by your heart. And of course, we know oxytocin is just this love, feel-good chemical. Oxytocin, believe it or not, actually helps to calm the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, that emotional part of the brain that's fully formed before we're even born. And guess what? It can also, when it makes its way to your prefrontal cortex, actually calm anxiety, your heart. And there's more information traveling from the heart to the brain than the other way around. Now get this, your heart has 60 times more voltage than the brain does. You know, when I measure brainwave activity using EEG machines, we're picking up on electrical impulses, electrical stimulation from the brain. You know, that's what EEGs do. They pick up on electrical activity in the brain, off the scalp. Guess what? Your heart has its own, you know, I mean, your whole body is bioelectric. That's, again, an insanely awesome topic, but I'm not going to dive into it. But your heart also, again, when we measure the electrical activity, the electrical output is 60 times more powerful than the brain. Now get this, it's 100 times more powerful when we're talking about the magnetic field. Your heart, 100 times more powerful than the brain. Think about that. Now, all your body's, your body has a bunch of different systems, right? And if you can actually create coherence in one system, it kind of entrains the other ones and brings the other systems into balance. So I want you to think about this, and this is where like the research is just like blowing my mind. You know, when you can train your heart into coherence, it will entrain the brain as well, make it more coherent, okay, more balanced, more stable. And how do you do that? And you'll see in a moment why I'm mentioning. I brought up the protest at the beginning of this, because again, a lot of people are walking and they're protesting, and they're in groups, right? And this is key because our hearts actually extend out. You know, the electromagnetic output goes anywhere between 3 to 5, 6. I mean, I've heard numbers that extend up to like 50 feet, but a bare minimum 3 feet. Okay, 3 feet. So if you're standing next to someone, you're also entraining your own coherence to theirs. Now, if someone is incoherent, and now what creates coherence and incoherence? Well, here's where it just gets even better. Emotions, okay? Emotions are so powerful because if you can put yourself into a state of love and gratitude, compassion, it creates coherence inside the heart. Heart coherence is directly related to brain coherence, so your brain starts to actually function and operate even better. Think about that. Training your heart into coherence entrains the brain as well. Like, my God. And I want to give you guys a practical thing, a practical little exercise to do this, because there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different techniques out there. And so one of the simplest ways, you know, and I've, in the past, I've talked about, you know, the importance of becoming mindful of your state, mindful and aware of what your present experience is. Now more so than ever. Because now I'm thinking, like, truly, if we could just become aware of our emotions and shift reverse into neutralize them, and then create a more positive state. My God, like we're having not just a direct effect on our own physiology, on our own biology, on hormonal and gut and brain function. I mean, like everything, right? We are having a direct, like tangible effect on people directly around us. Okay? Not just like in terms of our communication with one another, but an actual effect on one another. So think about this. Like if you could just get yourself into coherence. So how do we do that? Pause. Notice your state. Become aware. This is why mindfulness. This is why I preach mindfulness. This is why I sit and breathe and meditate every day, because it gets me so tapped into my internal state. Okay? Put a pause on things. Become aware. Start to learn to neutralize that. Bring yourself into a state of neutralization, and then start cultivating, start thinking. Start with breath work, and just simply breathe in for a count of 5 and breathe out for a count of 5, okay? That in and of itself can actually start to create more coherent patterns. So if you see a very incoherent heart, okay, and they've measured this, someone's in a state of anxiety, stress, and things like that, it's very jagged, it's all over the place, far from coherent. If someone's in a stable place of love, of gratitude, of compassion, of acceptance, you see these really nice, smooth, sine-like waves. That's your heart's rhythm, right? And you can create that by creating an emotional shift inside yourselves. Okay? So, you're going to breathe 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, because that alone can do it. And then you're going to start to think about a situation, a person, something or someone that you love, care for deeply. Create that state inside and hold on to it. Like try to stay in that for a little bit. It will naturally bring your heart rhythm into coherence, and that will actually start to stabilize other systems, and that actually starts to affect the people around you. So if you go out and you surround yourself with people like-minded, if you were to all collectively do this before proceeding with any kind of action, you all sync up, you entrain yourselves, you entrain your hearts, your brains, your minds, you move forward collectively in a very positive way. Now, if conversely, of course, if everyone's upset, angry, and they're all rallying together to protest and to attack and to express their frustration, even if it's righteous, right? What's the result of that? Well, we all feed off of that. It builds up, right? And this is why I say it starts with you. Always going to simply start with you. And this is a very real, immediate, direct, tangible way that you can honestly start to change yourself and the situation around you. And that's empowering. That's how you change the world. Start with yourself. I'm going to stop right here. Stop right now, because I could go on about this all day. Oh my God, I'm learning so much and I love it. But with that, guys, wishing you much love. It's a beautiful day out right now. I'm about to go for a walk. If it's nice out where you are, do the same. Enjoy life. Give yourself that. Have an awesome day. Wishing you much, much, much love. And go in peace. Work that heart out. It's hardcore. I love you. Peace.